Good morning, and I apologize for the delay. Welcome to E2 Tech's September Forum, Heat of the Moment. Plans from state officials, energy companies, and Maine's next governor. My name is Jim Katsafikas. I'm chair of E2 Tech and a partner at Perkins Thompson. We're a member organization, and I want to talk a little bit about E2 Tech. We're comprise a broad spectrum of businesses and organizations that seek to build Maine's environmental and energy technology economy. Our mission is to advance job growth, research and development, and new product commercialization within the environmental, energy, and clean tech sector. We're an affiliate of the Maine Chamber of Commerce, and we describe it as a trade association plus. Our members include not only gas and electric utilities, renewable power companies, environmental engineers, manufacturers, innovators, lawyers, accountants, consultants, designers, and emerging entrepreneurs, but also governmental agencies, cities, towns, special districts, educational institutions, students, and nonprofit corporations and organizations. We have over 200 members and over 2,400 public and private entities and individuals as contacts. What do we do? What does E-Tech do? E2 Tech seeks to build and expand the state's environmental, energy, and clean tech sectors. We act as a catalyst to stimulate growth in this sector by facilitating networking, serving as a clearinghouse for objective information, and leading efforts to promote the sector. E2 Tech offers education to our members through our forum lecture series and our workshops. We offer networking with other members in this sector, including manufacturers, suppliers, professional service firms, regulators, lenders, and investors, and E2 Tech partner organizations. We provide the opportunity to participate in E2 Tech projects which promote business development and job growth, research and development, and new product commercialization. The environmental, energy, and clean tech sectors in Maine have seen a 31% increase in jobs in the past decade. E2 Tech has a strong interest in promoting this sector as a source of business creation and expansion and as a source of new jobs in Maine. So I'd like to, on behalf of E2 Tech, its board of directors, and its members, welcome you to the September Forum. Today's a double header. First off, we're going to hear from, we hope, each of the gubernatorial candidates. This is the third consecutive election campaign in which E2 Tech has hosted a forum where we've invited all of the gubernatorial candidates to speak to energy and environment issues. We did this in 2006. We did this in 2010 as well. The second part of our program, after the gubernatorial presentation, we'll have a panel discussion with state energy officials, Patrick Woodcock and Michael Stoddard. And so in a few moments, we hope to get underway. Okay, well, let me talk a little bit about the way we've set up the program for today. Each candidate is allotted 30 minutes, and they're going to be able to present their remarks on energy and environmental, economic policies in those spheres. They may touch upon Maine heating policies and programs. Each will have 30 minutes total that they can divide up as they see fit. We suggest 20 minutes of remarks and 10 minutes of questions, but it could be 25 minutes of remarks and 5 minutes of questions, or it could be 30 minutes of remarks and no questions. It's however they see fit to do that. There are microphones provided at each side of the audience, and we'll simply accept people as they ask questions. I apologize profoundly for the delay. We have a couple of changes in our program. The governor will not be speaking this morning. We will proceed with our regular program. We were scheduling to have Congressman Michoud speak at 8:30, so we'll pick it up at that point. Right now, I'd like to talk about our sponsors this morning. No, this is probably the largest program, the largest single forum that E2 Tech has ever put on. And so we'd like to thank everyone in the audience, but we can't do this without our sponsors. And our sponsors this morning include our gold sponsor, Goggin Energy. Goggin Energy is a Portland-based energy services company offering energy audits, energy-efficient mini-split air source heat pumps, say that one 5 times fast, solar electricity, PV, and heat pump water heaters. Goggin Energy is a division of the Goggin Company, which has been in business since 1999. We'd also like to thank our gold sponsor, the Maine Association of Building Efficiency Professionals. The association was established in 2009 to represent and advance the interests of businesses and individuals providing energy efficiency and renewable energy services and equipment, including architects, builders, engineers, energy auditors, HVAC and electrical contractors, manufacturers, professionals, and suppliers, all of whom seek to improve the energy efficiency of residential and commercial buildings and to reduce our dependence upon fossil fuels. We'd also like to thank our silver sponsors this morning: Interphase Energy, Revision Energy, Pellet Co., Maine Energy Systems, New England Clean Energy Council, the Sunrise Guide, U.S. Green Buildings Council of Maine, TRC, Fairchild, 19 Oaks, and MainBiz. Perkins Thompson is proud to be the Fall 2014 student sponsor, and today we're going to welcome students from the Baxter Academy for Technology and Science who will be attending this program a little later. We'd like to introduce our platinum sponsor, MaineEnergyIQ.com, which is a new resource that the Maine Energy Marketers Association, or affectionately known as MEMA, has developed to provide energy information on energy options. With us this morning is Executive Director Jamie Pye to explain about this new MaineEnergyIQ.com program. Jamie?
Thank you, Jim, and thank you, everyone, and Jeff, your great team putting on this presentation. Elliot, I couldn't help but thinking as I was sitting down there waiting, I saw one person on the stage. Back in the day when I was a musician in college, it was never a good thing to have more people in the band than in the audience. And this is the reverse of that. If there's only one person on the stage, I don't know how that works, but thank you for coming. Thank everybody else for coming. My name is Jamie Pye. I'm the President and CEO of the Maine Energy Marketers Association. We're a nonprofit trade association based in Maine, started in 1954, and we have over 300 companies today representing the heating oil, biofuels, motor fuels, convenience store, propane. We also sell some pellets our folks are now doing, and the HVAC business. We also have a trade school up in Brunswick, which we are the primary and one of the finest schools in the New England area to do hands-on training for people to get licensed in these areas. Through MEMA's educational initiative, Maine Energy IQ, we are proud to serve as the lead sponsor of today's gubernatorial forum on heating issues. Choosing the right heating option is one of the most important decisions that our families make every year. And through the MaineEnergyIQ.com, we are providing the heating facts that we believe customers deserve and telling the rest of the story about heating oil and propane and other fuels can serve Maine needs just as well as natural gas. It's a competitive type of site, if not better. What I like most about this website, the MaineEnergyIQ.com website, is that I believe that it exemplifies a public policy that we humbly suggest the upcoming speakers subscribe to, and that is the market players will compete in this arena very aggressively for their customers. And the consumers, given the facts, will make their own wise choices. We believe there's little need for government to be in the business of picking winners and losers in this area. So I ask you to take a look at the website, ask questions, there's a quiz on it, be good at it. And after that, again, thank you, Jeff, thank you, Jim. This is a great organization. We're proud to be a sponsor of it. And if the governor's not going to speak, I'd take his time if you need to. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Jamie. Now, I've already explained that we're going to have a second part of the program, so we hope you stay for that following the remarks from the gubernatorial candidates. We also invite everyone to attend Interphase Energy's Alternative Energy Expo, which is being held this afternoon at 145 Presumpscot Street, Portland, between 2 and 8 p.m. It's free to the public. It will showcase a variety of alternative energy organizations, providing information, demonstrations, speakers, workshops, panels, electric vehicles, music, food trucks, and more. So that's this afternoon between 2 and 8, 145 Presumpscot Street, Interphase Energy's Alternative Energy Expo. Tomorrow, the first annual Portland Green Fest will take place in Monument Square, Portland. That's between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. That also is free. It will feature music, workshops, movies, children's activities, an eco-fashion show, and more than 50 exhibitors highlighting renewable energy, local foods, electric cars, clean water, wildlife, Wildlife and Monument Square. Green products for your home or business, and more. So those are 2 events coming up, one today, one tomorrow. And we'll be expecting Congressman Michoud momentarily. With that, we'll just take a short break. We've already done the word from our sponsor, so I'll get you. Absolutely. Good morning again. We're here for our gubernatorial forum, and I'd like to introduce Congressman Mike Michoud. Representative Michoud has served as a United States Congressman for the 2nd District of Maine since January of 2003. He's the first recognized Franco-American from Maine to be elected to federal office. He's the 2nd of 6 children, was raised in Medway, and attended high school in East Millinocket. After graduation, Representative Michoud followed in the footsteps of his father and grandfather, gaining employment at the Great Northern Paper Company. He first ran for the State House in 1980, where he went on to serve 7 consecutive terms in the House of Representatives. In 1994, he was elected to the Maine Senate. In 2000, he was unanimously elected Maine Senate President. In the U.S. House of Representatives, Congressman Michoud serves on the Committee on Veterans Affairs, where he's the ranking member. Through his leadership on the Committee on Veterans Affairs, he's working to ensure that our veterans receive fair and equal treatment as well as the benefits that they deserve. His legislation to create the Northern Border Regional Commission to provide economic development and job creation resources for economically distressed areas became law in 2008. He attended the John F. Kennedy School of Government program for senior executives in state and local government at Harvard University. He's also been awarded an honorary Doctor of Public Service from Unity College, Husson College, and Maine Maritime Academy. There's information and a link to Representative Michaud's energy and environmental policies in your brochure. And just to be sure, because I announced the ground rules earlier and we didn't have everyone in the room at the time, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page this morning. The gubernatorial candidates have been invited here this morning to provide remarks on their energy, environmental, and economic policies, may touch upon Maine heating policies and programs. Each will have 30 total minutes. The candidates may decide to provide 20 minutes of remarks and then 10 minutes of questions, maybe 25 minutes of remarks, maybe 30. It's up to the candidate. We've invited them to stay to listen to each other's candidates' remarks and network and talk with E2 Tech members. We understand they have busy schedules as well. We do have the ability to meet out in the lobby afterwards if they'd like. During their remarks, I'm going to hold up signs. This is like when I go before the state Supreme Court. The lights go on when you're about ready to run out of time. Except we're a little lower tech this morning. We have signs. So at the 1-minute mark, I will hold up a sign, and then I'll let you know when it's time to conclude the presentation. So with that, I'd like to present Congressman Mike Michoud.
Thank you. Thank you very much for a very kind and very generous introduction. I'll apologize because I won't be able to stay, to be in the lobby afterwards because I got a very tight schedule. As you know, Congress is still in session and we're dealing with the ISIS issue as well, so I won't be able to stay. But I do want to say a good morning. It's great to be out of Washington and back here in the great state of Maine, especially among a group of folks who don't think global warming is a myth and are serious about moving forward with the energy plan for Maine's future. It's something we tried to do in Washington actually back in 2009 when I was proud to vote for the Affordable Clean Energy Reform Act. It would have been good not only for America, but it would have been even better for the state of Maine, because what we were able to do with the American Clean Energy Reform Act is actually have it build upon what Maine did here a number of years ago with the RGGI program. So it would have been extremely helpful for Maine if we're able to get that legislation passed. But in the end, it never went anywhere over in the United States Senate. But despite the inaction at the federal level, Maine can and must do more to cut our heating costs and other energy bills here in the state of Maine. Our state has enormous energy resources. including untapped energy efficiency. And we have made great strides over the years with clean energy policy and initiatives. But during the last 4 years, we've failed to do as much as we could have done here in the state of Maine. And as often as not, Governor LePage has hindered, not helped, real efforts to reduce energy costs and invest in Maine energy. There should be little disagreement about the number one thing that we can do to cut heating oil bills in our homes. That's weatherization and efficiency. That is the number one thing we all should be able to do. And I'd like to commend Efficiency Maine and its director for their tremendous efforts to help us capture energy-efficient opportunities in our homes, as well as our businesses and industries. Energy efficiency returns 3, 4, or more dollars for every dollar invested. And no matter what fuel that you use, adding insulation and stopping leaks are simple steps to cut our heating bills and keep families warm and comfortable in their homes. That's what it's all about, keeping families warm and so they can be comfortable in their homes. And we need to make sure that all Mainers have access to the most energy-efficient heating equipment available, whether it's for oil, gas, wood, or other fuels. There's a lot of debate about this fuel or that fuel, and what I say is let's spend and burn as little as possible for energy fuel by not wasting it in the first place. If it's oil or gas, it's money ultimately that's leaving the state of Maine. If it's wood, yes, wood is renewable and local, but it's not infinite. And there are too many valuable uses for our wood basket to send wasted wood energy out of leaking homes. Efficiency Maine now has a very effective home energy savings program to help all Mainers make these cost-saving energy improvements. In just the first year, it has already helped more than 5,000 Maine homers cut about 30% from their heating bills on average. The program is similar to the temporary program started at Efficiency Maine several years ago using federal dollars from the Recovery Act funds. And I'm proud to have supported that legislation to give those funds and other state resources over the years to help Maine grow its clean energy economy. But ultimately, it is up to the state of Maine to solve Maine's unique energy challenges and make the most of the untapped opportunity that surrounds us as a state. It's great that we have this new efficiency program with ongoing state-based funding from the RGGI program. And thanks to the bipartisan crafting of that legislation that passed, the Omnibus Energy Bill in 2013. This was one of the most significant energy bills in a generation in the state of Maine. And it was a result of a very difficult negotiation, a bipartisan negotiation where legislators got together and really put aside their partisan differences and really focused on putting forward a omnibus energy bill. But what did the governor do? He vetoed it. He vetoed the most important energy bill that was ever put before him, one that would reduce the cost and provide millions of dollars to home heating programs and much more. Why? Because he saw it as an opportunity to drive out potentially massive private sector offshore wind investment in clean energy by Statoil. His ideology against made in Maine renewables got in the way. That wasn't the first time, and it probably will not be the last time. But let me be clear. I have a proven track record of supporting the University of Maine, and I know they can accomplish amazing things, and I will continue to support and champion what the university is doing. But I would never have manipulated that support to drive out of the state of Maine a private investment dollars that would have made a huge difference here in the state of Maine. We can achieve more with that public-private partnership that we have to rely on here in Maine. On a positive note, the governor and I actually seem to agree that high-efficiency air source heat pumps are a very good idea. They take a low bit of energy from the grid and make it go 3 times as far to heat our homes. The big difference is I don't bring that my way or the highway type of attitude in governing. I've never done it in the Maine legislature when we had the 17-17-1 split, and in Congress, I've not done that as well. And if you look at the outcomes of what we can accomplish by working together, we can accomplish lots of things here in Maine and at the federal level if we were able to work together. I would not have vetoed a bill last session to help more low-income Mainers to get financial assistance to install heat pumps, as Governor LePage did. That was a good idea supported by, once again, Republicans and Democrats. And Governor LePage vetoed it because of his ideological opposition to part of the bill that actually deals with solar power. We need to be willing to compromise at times and find common ground and common areas where we can agree on and to build upon that. And that is what's been sorely missing over the last several years in Augusta. If you look at the number of vetoes that this governor has vetoed, the bills, and the Maine people are the one that's paying the price for it. And speaking about solar, we're undergoing a solar revolution here in the state of Maine. Prices are plummeting, and despite the long winters, it is a resource that Maine has an abundance of. It's available all over the state, both in urban and rural areas, and it can actually help reduce electric grid costs over time, and it's absolutely clean and renewable. Not only that, it is good for the economy. Harnessing this energy and installing solar power will create good quality jobs for hundreds of Mainers. Our overdependence on heating oil is unsustainable, not just from an environmental standpoint, but also from an economic standpoint as well, and for the pocketbooks of Mainers here. If elected governor, I've set an aggressive goal of cutting the use of home heating oil by 50% by the year 2030. Yes, it's an aggressive goal, but I think we can do it. Through energy efficiencies, heating modernization, and increased fuel diversity, we can get there. And let's not forget that an even larger amount is spent on oil from transportation, whether it's gasoline, diesel, or other fuels. This is draining our state's economy. But just as the last 4 years have been about old ideas and have been more about rhetoric than action, under my administration, we will leverage new technology and proven models to heat and power our economy. Electricity is a fuel of the future, just as the heat pumps is a revelation in super efficiency space heating, which makes use of existing electric grid. Modern electric vehicles are an enormous opportunity here in the state of Maine to cut gasoline bills and oil dependency here in Maine. It's not just going to happen overnight, but it is coming, and we must be active to accelerate in a positive way. My administration will prioritize working with municipalities, employers, utilities, and others to spark investment in electric vehicles and changing the infrastructure for a more sustainable and prosperous transportation future. Because I think that what energy resources that we do have in abundance here in the state of Maine, and I think we can use it. And it's not oil and gas, but a large amount of power in Maine can be with renewable energy. We've used clean, renewable hydropower for decades. Now we're adding large amounts of wind power and we have the potential to add lots of cheap solar power over time as well. Diversifying our energy sources creates jobs here in the state of Maine, keeps more money here in the state of Maine. It makes us energy independent. It's also beneficial for our environment. We are going to do what we have to do to make sure that we take advantage of everything. What are we going to do with this power? Clean, renewable energy? Well, we're going to use it for lights, appliances, and factories. Why not use it to heat our homes and power our vehicles? Why not sell some of it to our neighbors to the south who pay top dollar for power that generates economic activity here in the state of Maine? We should be doubling down on promoting renewable energy in Maine, including wind power, solar, ocean energy, and more. We shouldn't be attacking this proven technology with baseless accusations. Some of you may have seen the recent report from the Maine Technology Institute last week that showing that alternative energy is one of the industries in Maine with the greatest potential for job growth, with the greatest potential of job growth. That is huge. Not only has it seemed that some of the largest job gains in the 2007 to 2012, the renewable energy sector also paid some of the highest wages in any of the technology clusters that MTI studied. We were the first state in the country to be hooked up to tidal power by connecting the Ocean Renewable Energy Power Company, that project that was built over there. And I believe that John Furlan may even be in the audience here today. He and his team have done a great job with that particular project. And I'm proud to have been part of that by helping to secure federal funding that was needed to harness the power of ocean here in the state of Maine. With our long coastline and with our big tides, our steady winds, our spirit of innovation and entrepreneurship, Maine can be a leader in alternative energy while creating thousands of new jobs here in the state. But being a leader also means helping Maine's commercial and industrial sectors save money by taking full advantage of energy-efficient opportunities in areas such as industrial lighting, manufacturing, machinery, refrigeration, and agriculture and seafood sectors. Maine commercial and industrial sectors can also benefit by utilizing Maine-based renewable energy. But we can't get there without a governor who understands the complex challenges facing our state with respect to home heating and energy use, as well as a governor who's willing to tap into the incredible opportunity that is there for us to seize. And no one in this room should not think that there's not opportunity. There is an incredible opportunity. 5 weeks ago, when I was flying back from D.C., a gentleman approached me at the airport. He works for a company that actually does a lot of investments or companies overseas in India. And what he was telling me, there are a lot of businesses in India that want to invest in the United States. And he's from Maine because he wants that investment to come to Maine. I asked him what area they interested in. He said, the paper industry and clean renewable energy. But he also told me that he's not bringing any of his clients here to the state of Maine because he's embarrassed by this governor. And seeing what this governor did to Statoil, that's concerning. But there's other opportunities as well. I talked about tidal power and the fact that we was able to get earmarked for that tidal power project because I believed in tidal power and we're the first state in the country to be hooked up to the grid. This is not only good for Maine, for those jobs here in the state of Maine, but also that technology. Japan sent a delegation to Maine to look at what we were doing here for tidal power because they want to use what we were able to gain from that research and development funding for Japan. Likewise, Saudi Arabia, they've actually sent a couple delegations over from Saudi Arabia to the University of Maine to look at what we were doing here with offshore wind potential and the bridge in the backpack technology. Maine is known around the world for what we're doing in clean renewable energy. And we got to keep ahead of the game if we are going to lead this country and the world in those technologies. Just last week, I met with a consul general from the UK that actually was on the trip with the Assistant Secretary of Energy, David Danielson, to look at the offshore wind project. They're very excited about what we're doing here in Maine with offshore wind. So we have to move forward in a positive direction to really harness our alternative energy here and create those jobs here in the state of Maine. And you are the folks out there that are going to continue to hold your elected officials, both at state level and federal level, accountable for energy policies. And I ask you just to think big, because there is a lot of opportunities here in the state of Maine to really grow our economy using clean, renewable energy. So once again, I want to thank you very much for inviting me here this morning. Look forward to your questions, and with that, I'll turn it back over to Jim.
Do you want to take a few questions from the audience?
Sure, yeah.
Does anyone in the audience have any questions for the Congressman? And if you would please, if you're going to ask a question, please come down and use one of the microphones. We have a few minutes for this. Thank you. Please step right up.
Good morning. If you were governor, would you support a feed-in tariff?
Would I support what I did?
A feed-in tariff?
I would definitely look at that. As governor, the first thing I'd be doing as governor is we have a huge budget problem we're going to be facing because of the deficit, the structural gap that this governor has left the state of Maine. But when you look at tariffs and energy, I'll be sitting down with the community here in the state of Maine to focus on how we can actually move forward on some of the issues that I had talked about to make Maine the clean, renewable energy state in the United States. And I'll be looking at all opportunities, and that definitely will be on the table as well. But I'll also require sitting down with the industry to find out what is the best way that we can move forward as a state. As I mentioned earlier, I do not have all the answers, but one of the things I do know is how to be able to bring people together to really solve these problems that we currently have as a state. When you look at the opportunities with clean renewable energy, there is a lot of opportunities. Not only working with the industry, but one of the big problems I've seen is the fact that, and I already met with the energy czar at the White House last year, and my whole discussion with the energy czar was the fact that every administration that since I've been a member of Congress, whether it's the Bush administration or this administration, they've always cut LIHEAP funding. And the basis for cutting LIHEAP funding is the fact that they're saying that 62% of the homes are heated with natural gas, electric rates are low, so therefore they can cut LIHEAP funding. Well, those are good national statistics. However, they're not for Maine. We have the oldest housing stock in the country. About 75% of the homes are heated with oil. And one of the areas I've asked the administration to look at is whether or not they can actually help with the influx of dollars here in the state of Maine, so we can start weatherizing the homes that we have. And that's something that hopefully we'll be able to move forward, utilizing some federal resources as well as the private sector. I think we could have this joint public-private partnerships, working closely with municipalities. I know a lot of municipalities in Portland. I talked to the mayor of Portland. They want to do more with solar power here in Portland for municipal buildings. So we'll be looking at everything. Everything will be on the table as far as trying to get us to our energy independence that we need. We got to rely on other states. I know The natural gas is part of the equation for a transitional fuel. One of the problems that I see now is Massachusetts backing off of the pipeline issue. And if Massachusetts backs off, does that mean that Connecticut, some other New England states back off? And if those states do back off, then what will that mean for the ratepayers here in the state of Maine as far as having to pay for that pipeline? So there's a lot to the equation that we have to really focus on, but that will definitely be on the table.
Yep.
Thank you. Could you address railroads and public transportation? Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you very much. I know that's been an issue when you're probably referring to the East-West Highway. I'm opposed to that private project on East-West Highway. I don't know how they're going to build an East-West Highway without using eminent domain authority, and I'm not going to use eminent domain authority for a private entity for that. Rail, I'm a very strong supporter of rail. When you look at what's happening at the federal level, particularly with the European trade deal that's being negotiated right now, and you look at where Maine's located compared to Europe, rail is the way to go. And when you look at rail, particularly as you get into the rural parts of the state, you have to focus on partnerships with freight rail and passenger rail as well. I'm a strong supporter of building that rail line out in Washington County, because Eastport being the deepest water port on the East Coast, it doesn't have to be dredged. And what I would propose is the state actually to build that rail line for two reasons. One, you can utilize the Maine Army National Guard to build it as a training project. You get free equipment, free man hours. The only thing they can't use their dollars for is materials. But there are other federal dollars you can use for materials to do it. The second reason is because of the Interstate Commerce Clause, the state can't regulate rail. And part of if the state owns it, then they'll be able to actually, whoever they have operate it, will be able to have some control. Not that I want the state to control everything, but if you look at short line rail here in the state of Maine, having worked in the paper industry, seeing what has happened with the reliability, particularly of Montreal, Maine Atlantic, and Pan Am to some degree, if the state owns it, then whoever they have operated, they actually can control. If you look at the customer satisfaction, from what I'm told, when the state took over the rail line from Millinocket to Madawaska, the customer satisfaction went up about 60%. So reliability on freight rail is an issue, but for passenger rail, I'm a strong supporter and always have been a strong supporter of passenger rail. At the federal level, we are constantly have to fight off, some of our colleagues who want to cut funding for passenger rail, and we ought to actually be enhancing that type of funding as well.
Thank you. Heat pumps mitigate CO2 at 57 times more cost effectively than solar collectors. So for every $1 million of heat pumps you put in, you need $57 million worth of solar panels to mitigate the same CO2. Would you recommend, or are you going to change the governor's policy to take money out of heat pumps and put it into solar collectors?
No, I think it has to be all of the above type of technology. When you look at renewable energy and opportunities for efficiency, it has to be all of the above. What I'll be looking at is actually how can we enhance additional resources here at the state level to actually tap into, whether it's solar, whether it's heat pump, other type of technology. So I'd be looking forward to getting additional resources, not just cutting back on one to do others.
Why would you want to pay 57 times more for the same product?
When you look at solar power, the cost of solar power is actually coming down, and I think it will continue to come down. But efficiency, when you look at energy efficiency, that's one area the state has done an effective job in that area. Efficiency Maine, and we'll definitely be continuing to look at all avenues on how we can hold down the cost, and it's going to require some state or public funding to actually help hold down that cost. But it's an area that we'll definitely look at.
Greatly appreciate your emphasis on efficiency. On that point, would you support shifting LIHEAP dollars from purchasing more fuel to weatherization and insulation?
I think we need more money into weatherization and efficiency type programs. The problem with the LIHEAP funding, unfortunately, is because of the cuts under this administration and the previous administration to LIHEAP funding. That's not the way to go. I have already approached the administration about giving Maine some additional funding for weatherization and efficiency programs here in the state of Maine. It can't be one or the other. If you look at one of the problems with Maine, as I mentioned, having the oldest housing stock in the country, 75% heat with oil, we have the oldest population per capita in the country. There are huge concerns that we have, and I can't see, disenfranchising those who need that LIHEAP funding for weatherization, even though it makes more sense. My goal is to utilize the office of the governor to enhance what we already have here, additional resources, not cut one for the other. And there are a lot of opportunities out there, as I mentioned. The fact that the Energy Czar is willing to look at the focus on Maine and what the federal government might be able to help out. Another avenue, as far as arguing for additional funding, is where we do have the oldest population in the country per capita. There's no reason why Maine cannot actually put together a program, and I know Speaker Reeves is putting together a program on how we're going to take care of our elderly population, live in their homes safely and freely. One of the areas he's looking at is actually a $62 million bond package to have energy efficiency homes for elderly with 4 or 6 to a complex for our elderly population. So there are a lot of opportunities here, and when you look at in the philanthropic area with individuals who are very focused on climate change, with a governor who believes in clean renewable energy and efficiency, you can tap into that private sector to partner up with public-private dollars to get things done. And that's the way we have to look at how we can make the state government more efficient, more effective, and move forward in a positive way. So thanks again for that question. Once again, I want to thank all of you for being here this morning. Look forward to continuing discussing the whole issue about energy policy, and if there's ever any questions that you have on my energy policy, or if you think that we have to make some adjustments in it because we might not have the facts down correctly, please don't hesitate to let us know. So once again, thank you very much for all you being here this morning. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Immediately after his graduation from Harvard, Elliott Cutler worked in Washington, D.C. from 1968 to 1973 for Senator Edmund Muskie of Maine, where he helped craft the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the National Environmental Policy Act, and other environmental laws. He later served in the White House as Associate Director for Natural Resources, Energy, and Science in the Office of Management and Budget, where he was responsible for overseeing those policies at the Departments of Agriculture, Energy and Interior, and the Environmental Protection Agency. He also represented the President in negotiations that led to the settlement of the Maine Indian land claims case and in other claims involving Native American tribes. He served as White House Energy Policy Chief during the energy crisis of the late 1970s, led the interagency working group for the reclassification of Alaska public lands, and represented the United States in international negotiations. Mr. Cutler founded Cutler & Stanfield LLP, which under his leadership grew to be the second largest environmental law firm in the United States, representing both private sector and public jurisdiction clients in nearly 30 states and complex infrastructure projects involving airports, highways, and other major facilities. Following his firm's merger in 2000 with the international law firm Akin Gump, he lived in Beijing, where he opened the first office in China for that firm, was the partner in charge of the firm's Asia practice, and represented Chinese clients in making investments outside China. He resigned as a partner in that firm when he began his gubernatorial campaign as an independent candidate in 2010. From 2010 to 2012, he was co-founder and principal in Maine Seafood Ventures, LLC, a company that helped open China and other foreign markets to exports of frozen Maine lobsters. Today, Mr. Cutler is chairman of Maine Asia, LLC, a company developing Asian markets for Maine foods, boats, and other products, and bringing sustainable year-round agriculture to Maine and other northern latitudes with greenhouses and other structures that integrate cost-effective solar energy technologies. So I'd like to, it's information about his energy and environmental policies and a link to that are in your brochure. I'd like to introduce Mr. Elliot Cutler.
Good morning. Before I begin, on behalf of all of the three candidates, each of us, I want to apologize to you for the shenanigans this morning. That's not what democracy should be all about. It's a disservice and, frankly, an insult to you as voters. And I particularly want to apologize to the young people from Baxter Academy who are here with us today and who are populating the balcony. It's not what you should expect from a political campaign, and I will do my best over the course of my efforts in the next 53 days to make sure that it doesn't happen again. The discussion we're having here this morning isn't merely about our campaign's energy policies. It's as much about the long-term future of our state and about the foundation for a strong economy that can sustain jobs and opportunity. And it's not just about being better than LePage, about wielding the veto pen less, about being a nicer person. Those are all pretty low hurdles. It's about putting someone in charge as governor who can look beyond the next 4 or 8 years and make smart decisions about Maine's long-term future. It's about putting in place a vision, a strategy, and plans that are informed by experience, driven by facts, and based on the best ideas for Maine and Maine people. It's about more than saying what we ought to do. It's going to be very important also that it be about how to do it. And I do know how to do it. I know how to do it because I've done it. I did help write the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act when I was at OMB and was the energy czar, which, believe me, is an overstatement of the position. We made the first investments in research and development for renewable fuels. We brought the energy markets back to reality by deregulating oil and gas prices and by enacting PURPA. As a lawyer working on environmental and energy issues ranging from synthetic fuels development to nuclear waste cleanup, I understand the regulatory issues and I understand the capital formation issues that a lot of you face and that homeowners in the state of Maine also face. I've been an entrepreneur. I'm a partner in an energy storage, clean air energy, a compressed air energy storage project that will store 810 megawatts of electricity. And what we're developing at Maine Asia is a solar-powered greenhouse that we believe will bring cost-effective year-round agriculture to the state of Maine. Maine is at a crossroads. A wrong turn right now is going to take us down a very short dead-end road, promising things we can't deliver, chasing pricing that'll never happen, throwing more money at old programs and old ideas, proposing subsidies we can't afford for technologies that may not need them, and facing up to neither our challenges nor our opportunities. The road is longer the other way. The road's longer the other way, but it's the way I favor. because it will build a strong foundation for Maine's 21st century economy. It'll build a strong foundation for our kids. We start with this, a largely untapped resource basket for clean energy production that is characterized by one of the nation's best renewable source profiles for electricity generation. This resource basket generates a remarkable confluence of opportunities in Maine to, one, become increasingly self-sufficient in clean energy, two, generate jobs and incomes from the export of clean energy, and three, do both in ways that are more environmentally benign. But right now, we're ignoring these opportunities. We're aimless. We have no energy system plan for Maine, nor a coherent set of policies designed for the 21st century. The good Lord must be looking down at us, blessed by these resources, and must be wondering, what are they thinking? What in the world are they doing? Here's what I think our strategy should be. Number one, let's move away from a system that maximizes current costs and toward one that accelerates life cycle savings. Second, let's move away from fuels that will increase in price and damage Maine's most precious resources, and toward energy sources with more stable operating costs and lower collateral costs. And third, let's build a bridge between today and tomorrow in ways that do not leave us stuck on that bridge. How? How do we do this? Well, my guiding principle is that we should make markets better reflect real costs. Let's make the markets work better without trying to displace them. Let me give you 5 particular suggestions. First, I think we ought to be encouraging the formation of energy service provider companies, ESCOs, that focus on performance, on the delivery of heat and electricity at the lowest life cycle costs, rather than the sale of particular technologies or fuels. Second, I think we ought to support them and we ought to access for other purposes lowest cost capital through a Maine Energy Finance Authority that will support ESCOs, that will support other public-private partnerships, and that will support innovative projects. Third, let's expand pipeline capacity for New England to provide the gas we need for that bridge without letting it be a disincentive to more stable, longer-term solutions. That's really important. We need to understand how to make a deal, and how to regulate the pipeline and the gas coming into Maine in such a way that we do not get stuck on that bridge. It's an important bridge, but we can't get stuck on it. Fourth, let's pursue energy and environmental efficiencies in real ways. Conservation remains the biggest bang for the buck, but fuel switching and technology switching also has to be part of a performance and outcomes-based approach. It needs to be affordable and it needs to be accessible for people in the state of Maine who right now cannot afford and cannot access ways that they can heat their homes less expensively. Let's try net metering rate structures that will save transmission investment dollars for the most important transmission projects while promoting investment in solar, small-scale wind, and other distributed renewable generation. Let's pursue grid-scale and dispersed energy storage so that we have electricity available not only when it's generated, but when we need it. And finally, let's focus on transportation efficiencies. The transportation sector in the state of Maine consumes 49% of our energy. and it's responsible for 46% of our carbon emissions. We should pursue with the other states in the region and with the provinces to our north and east a regional clean fuel standard that will control over time and lessen the carbon content of our transportation fuels. That is an urgent priority for Maine because that carbon is killing us more than it's killing most other states. And finally, with respect to transportation efficiencies, let's join the multi-state effort for zero-emission vehicles. Let's buy more electric vehicles for the state of Maine. And let's be sure that we develop standards for charging stations that don't put us in the same place that our earlier TransPass program did for people who use toll roads here and in the rest of New England. I want to say a little bit about heat before I turn to questions. Now, the next governor of Maine is going to be sworn in on January 6th. The temperature then is going to be, if we're lucky, in the 20s or 30s. And as one of us on that day prepares to tackle Maine's challenges, thousands of Maine families will be facing their own challenges. They're going to be making decisions about whether they should put oil in their furnace, food on their table, or medicine in their bathroom cabinet. It's not only wealthy Maine residents who are fleeing, in their case, fleeing income and estate taxes by going to Florida. Some not so wealthy people who can't afford to live in their own homes through the winter are packing up and going to Florida because it is cheaper to go there and stay there than it is to stay in their own homes in the state of Maine. Last winter, a state senator told me that his constituents were heating their homes by collecting fallen branches by the side of the road and buying heating oil in 5-gallon cans. 21,000 Maine households at or below 50% of the federal poverty level spend about 77% of their disposable income on winter heat when they ought to be spending no more than 6 or 7%. There's not one of us, neither Mr. Michaud, nor Mr. LePage, nor I, nor anyone in this room who wants people in this state to face a choice on Inauguration Day about whether to heat or eat. What can we do? There's not a lot we can do about the price of oil. We all know that. LIHEAP, what's left of LIHEAP after the 40% cut by the Obama administration, is an emergency response to a completely predictable annual event. And it doesn't do enough. It's like forcing Maine's 70,000 least affluent people into hospital emergency rooms because they have no access to preventive care. And we're doing that too. We need to do better. We need to do better. One thing we can do is reduce the other major component of operating costs, which are property taxes. And I've proposed a property tax relief program that'll save median homeowners in Maine 20 to 40% on their property taxes. Unlike oil prices, that's something within our control. Half the time that I have spoken about my property tax relief program to people across the state of Maine, the response is something ecstatic like, that's going to buy me 2 or 3 tankfuls of heating oil. That's real. The weatherization programs we have do not do enough, in my view, to promote fuel and technology switching. Not because it's better, but because in some cases, together with some weatherization, you get to a better performance and a better outcome. The work that Efficiency Maine is doing is good and important, but it is not a sufficient response for the places in Maine, rural and less affluent communities, where the problem is most acute. The Achilles heel is the pay-to-pay quality of the incentives. Now, I think we need a more robust response. I think that the ESCOs that I've suggested are a way to do it. I think we're going to have some public financing, and I think that the Maine Energy Financing Authority will provide us an avenue. Thank you so very much for your time. Thank you again for your patience with the three of us this morning. And I'd be delighted to try to answer your questions. Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Cutler. Thank you for your comments this morning. My name is Emily Figdor. I'm the Director of Environment
I know your
Maine.
name.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your comments with respect to expanding natural gas pipeline and the work that the governors across New England are doing, and the fact that Massachusetts just pulled out of the initial steps taken in the agreement. And I want to ask you, given your comments about climate change, how you can make sense of expanding and building new pipeline capacity that will last a century, and to build it on the backs of taxpayers and ratepayers, which is unprecedented, and do that despite the fact that the latest research from US EPA and other independent sources suggests that if you look at the full life cycle, that natural gas has as high or higher carbon emissions than coal. So wanted to follow up with you on that. Thank you.
Well, clearly you either weren't listening to my remarks or you prepared your question before you heard them. What I said about gas coming by pipeline into New England and into Maine is that we need it as a bridge. We need it as a bridge. We're going to have more plant closures in the state of Maine this winter than we had last winter. And when you think about the impact on the people whom we are talking about, and the people whom I am going to represent as governor, that is an extraordinary and awful impact. What I said about a pipeline, that's, I think, the most important thing I said, frankly, is that it needs to be a bridge where we don't get stuck. We need to make a deal on the pipeline that prevents it from being exactly what you're worried about it becoming. And I think I am better qualified, better prepared, and more experienced to make that deal than either of my opponents. Let me say one other thing about natural gas. The cost comparison between natural gas and heating oil is today, and in all likelihood will be for most of the next decade, maybe not beyond that, but for most of the next decade, considerably more favorable. We have 75% of Maine households today that are heating with oil whose price is going up. We have to live and work and make policy in the real world, not a world where we pretend that overnight we can bring nirvana defined by 100% dependence on renewable clean energy to Maine. We can't do it overnight. We need to preserve people's lives between now and then. And we need to do that in ways that are considerably more inventive than what we are doing today. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You talked about small-scale wind, and I took a capstone group of students from the University of Maine out to visit the small-scale wind and at homes and businesses. They cost about $16,000, and the best ones we could find put out 500 kilowatt hours a year. It takes 876 kilowatt hours a year to run a 100-watt light bulb for a year. Why would you be so enthusiastic about spending $16,000 to not keep a 100-watt light bulb going?
You know, what I said today and what I emphasized over and over is the importance of focusing on performance and outcomes, not focusing on one fuel or one device or one idea. I can look around this room and I can see people in this room who represent or actively sell heating oil, natural gas, wood pellets, heat pumps, clean energy, efficiency, wind energy, offshore and onshore, large scale and small scale, geothermal. We have, and this was the point, we have in Maine this enormous basket of all kinds of resource opportunities. Our job, a policymaker's job, is to try to shape the market in ways that not only make those technologies and fuels more available to people who need them, but also allow them to compete with each other, compete fairly. And I think the idea of promoting businesses in the private sector that are going to focus on performance and outcomes for homeowners and for commercial and industrial establishments will create a really level playing field. I'm not interested in throwing money, public money, at technologies that don't need it or don't deserve it. What I'm interested in doing is trying to get the availability of clean energy up in Maine and the cost of it over time down. Hi.
I'm not tall enough.
Well, just stand on bets.
I was curious, you happened to mention your China experience for a couple of reasons. One, I'll be with a delegation from China and Hong Kong on Monday in Boston, meeting up with folks who expressed an interest in energy and apparently have pockets full of cash. So my question is, what's your position or your thinking or methodology or whatever in possibly attracting foreign investment to develop a real energy industry? I'm talking about building major items. I also happen to be related to a company in England who builds these big, ROVs and all the subsea mining equipment. And I will say they had some interest in an operation here in the state of Maine, but they too recognize the impossibility of dealing with our present governor. They just won't take the risk. Same thing with Statoil. They're not going to mess around. They need policies, they need durable policies and whatever before they lay out big money. So I go back to my question. What's your position or whatever on seeking out foreign investment as part of the contribution to building our energy industry?
I'm totally, I'm totally for foreign investment, meaning investment from outside the state of Maine, from any source that is responsible and wants to work with us. And that clearly, after what's happened in Baileyville, in Woodland, includes Chinese investors. We would not have the largest employer in Washington County still in business and indeed expanding with 2 new tissue machines at the old Domtar pulp mill in Woodland, in Baileyville. We wouldn't have them still in business if it weren't for foreign investment from China, from Hong Kong, and from mainland China. This is it's really important, and I think one of the questions that everyone here ought to focus on when they're thinking about either businesses expanding or coming into Maine, or when they're thinking about investors who are looking at Maine and shortlisting Maine among other states as to where they're going to make their investments. And they call the governors and they say, we'd like you to come to Chicago or to Hong Kong to talk about it and to make the case for the state of Maine. Think about who you want to send. I'll send you, Les.
Thank you. I heard a lot this morning about alternative energy and a lot of emphasis on electricity, some emphasis on electricity. There's also been a lot of discussion about the price of current fossil fuels, their impact on the environment. And in the discussion, there seems to be something missing, which is what the cost of those alternate activities are going to be. And not to say that clean energy shouldn't come with a price, but I think we all know that wind unsubsidized is extremely expensive. Solar right now is still very expensive. One of the things that, because of the industry that I'm in right now, I've had to spend a lot of time studying thermal biomass, the sustainability of Maine's forest. One of the reasons that Maine now has a forest that is healthier than it's been in 100 years, has more wood growing on it than it has in 100 years, and is being, that cord per acre number keeps growing because of sustainable harvesting, is because the environmental industry, if you will, did such a fantastic job of making us conscious about that resource. Right now, that resource, if used for heating, is half the price of oil, a quarter of the price of electricity. Do you think that it's important for the state of Maine to emphasize the use of that natural resource as long as it can be proven to be sustainable? That's the question.
Absolutely. And when I was talking about, thanks, Les, for that question, or statement, or both. I understand. You're entitled. I talked about this untapped resource basket that's characterized by one of the nation's best profiles, renewable source profiles for electricity generation and for heat, frankly. And that clearly includes wood, biomass. I think I talked about biomass. If I didn't, I was trying to hurry through my remarks, and I apologize to you. But yes, absolutely. Look, the cordwood, the BTU, the million BTU value of cordwood right now is $11.36. Pellets is $14.67. Gas is $14.50, and fuel oil is $24.37. Now, I think we need to be careful about maintaining renewable as part of this equation so that we don't overcut the forests in Maine. I think we need to be careful that we don't burn cordwood or biomass. It's less likely that this will happen with pellets. We've got to be very careful that we don't increase our air pollution problem in the state of Maine, particularly during winter inversions, by burning wood in stoves that are too old to do it efficiently. But absolutely, I mean, I by no means exclude biomass. I mean, it's a long list. It's solar, it's offshore and onshore wind, it's biomass, it's geothermal, it's efficiencies, conservation and otherwise. I mean, it's tides, it's run-of-the-river hydro. I mean, we have an enormous opportunity in Maine, and that was my point about the good Lord looking down at us and saying, what in the world are they thinking by burning so much oil and continuing to do it? Sorry.
Yeah, this is basically a follow-up to Les's question, too, or his commentation. But essentially, both the Kyoto and the Copenhagen conferences fully recommended reforestation as the cure for global warming that's due to CO2 loading.
Yep.
Maine has an excellent opportunity to go and reforest itself, and that would provide more biomass for a variety of purposes, and it also does something else. It absorbs an awful lot of CO2, puts oxygen back into the thing, and it also cleans out a lot of air pollutants, which you and I both know quite a bit about. And I was wondering what your commitment would be to actually covering the state of Maine edge to edge with forests again, especially forests of species that are really good at eating up all that CO2 that people deny as a food.
You know, there's been a lot of reforestation that's taken place naturally in Maine. I mean, in the 1880s, we had 6.9 million acres of land under active cultivation for foodstuffs. And today we have 1.4 million acres of land under active cultivation. 700,000 of that we're growing trees. And in fact, with respect to the missing 5 million or so acres, most of that has now been reforested. So, you know, this is great, but we also need to grow more food in Maine. We ought to grow more food in Maine. We ought to double the amount of land in Maine that's under active cultivation in agriculture, in horticulture, and in trees. But, you know, I'm less, speaking personally, I am less focused on reforesting a state which has naturally reforested and whose forests are now pretty sustainably harvested than I am interested in making sure that we move ahead with some of the strategies that I've described this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Just as a little thing, Angus finally got natural gas to his house, my neighbor.
He's a lucky guy. I wish I had it.
We have time for one last question, quick question.
Hi.
Hi.
We've talked a lot about the natural gas pipeline, and I'd like to talk a little bit about the Exxon Enbridge oil pipeline that flows from Montreal to Maine. And I was wondering if you supported reversing the flow from east to west to east, and also changing from oil to tar sands.
No, I don't. Short answer,
Thank you.
okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
I'd like to thank our candidates for speaking this morning, and I want to remind you, we're going to be starting right in on our next panel discussion, so we'll have Patrick Woodcock and Michael Stoddard joining us in a few moments. I'd like to thank again the candidates for their presentations. I'd like to thank E2 Tech staff for all the hard work they put into putting this on. Jeff Marks, our Executive Director, Brianna Kernier, and Cindy Talbot, who were out at the table when you got your name tags coming in. Thank all of you for attending, and I ask you to stay for our next program. If you have to leave, I understand, and thank you for being here this morning.
If you could take your seats, we're going to get started here. Thank you. Thank you very much. For the remainder of our program, we have two of the most knowledgeable energy experts in the state of Maine. We're privileged to have them here today. I'm going to briefly introduce them, and they're each going to have about 20-minute presentations, and there'll be time for questions at the end of their presentations. First speaker is Patrick Woodcock. He is the director of the Governor's Energy Office. As director, Patrick is responsible for planning and coordinating the state's energy policy, and is the primary energy policy advisor to the governor. Patrick previously worked for U.S. Senator Olympia Snowe, and I can tell you from firsthand experience that Patrick was one of the most engaged, knowledgeable, and committed staffers in Washington that I had the pleasure to work with. He was always available, always responsive. And Patrick's been at the office now for about a year and a half, so he's welcome back to Maine, Patrick. Our next speaker is Mike Stoddard. He's an E2 Tech board member and director of the Efficiency Maine Trust. Mike has been in that role for about 4 years now. He's an attorney, and the trust that he directs has a proven record of reducing energy costs, both heating and energy costs, through energy efficiency measures. He is actually, one of his board members is Patrick, so they work closely together. And with that brief introduction, I'm going to introduce Patrick. Please step up.
Thank you for that introduction. I was thinking, listening to the remarks this morning, of a time when I think all of us have that moment where we understood the severity of the heating challenge in Maine. For some of that, it's a personal experience. For some of that, it's a family member, a neighbor. The moment that stays with me is in my previous position. This is around 2008. We all know what was going on at that time with heating oil prices. In a well-intentioned but misguided effort, a radio station told their listeners that they would give $1,000 out to the most worthy individual of home heating oil. Hundreds of people wrote in, not for themselves, but for family members, for neighbors, for the person across the street that they knew were struggling. Overwhelmed, the radio station selected person, but they had hundreds and hundreds of these letters, handed them to Senator Snowe. I then called each of these people, tried to get them into the state program, tried to find out if they had applied for heating assistance. And I think that anecdote shows a couple things. One is we all know as Mainers how big this problem is. We all know that this is an economic challenge. We all know that it's a personal struggle. And secondly, what it reveals is that well-intentioned efforts are not good enough. We need a coherent, methodical process to help people invest in affordable heating systems so that radio stations are pointing people to Efficiency Maine Trust to invest in the modern technology and not on a wild goose chase for just $1,000. Want to give a little context for what the numbers are. The graph to the left is the monthly, if you annualize the monthly expenditures of energy for residential households in the state of Maine. You can see that it's three components: electricity, heating oil, gasoline. Mainers pay about a third more than the national average for monthly motor gasoline costs. They pay slightly less for their electricity cost, and that big red bar for thermal energy is non-existent, really, when you look across the country. So the bulk of our energy expenditures really is in our thermal energy side. Maine is the most exposed state. Our per capita consumption of petroleum products is the highest in the region. We're off the charts nationally. This is, we just developed this graph with the most recent data about the primary fuel usage from where residential households are getting their BTUs to heat their home. The real takeaway from this is that there has been a significant drop from the percentage of homes that utilize home heating oil from 80% to 67.5% since 2005. Really, the growth that we've seen in Maine is through the use of wood. And one thing that's amazing about Mainers is just how resourceful we are. We all know this. What we're starting to do as a state is put more wood in the fireplace, cut back on the number of rooms that are heated during the winter months, and we have seen a precipitous decline in the use of heating oil across the state. The two barriers that I see, what is it that we can do to drive down the cost of staying warm in the winter? It's not that we use heating oil. Heating oil can be a very cost-effective use to stay warm, especially in the depths of the cold winter months. It's the way we use it. One, this is from the Brookhaven National Laboratory of the annual fuel utilization efficiency of our oil boilers in the Northeast. Almost 45% of our oil boilers are some of the least efficient on the market. This, if you follow this, the energy savings potential, if you were to take that population of oil boilers and put in the most efficient oil burners, no fuel conversions, you would see almost a 30% reduction in oil consumption. We're using oil inefficiently in the state of Maine. Second barrier, This has been referenced repeatedly, but that Maine has the least efficient housing stock in the country. What we're really referring to is that we have the highest percentage of homes that were built before World War II. You can track this, that nationally it's roughly a little less than 15% of homes are prior to World War II. In Maine, it's closer to 30%. And what that means is our building envelope is not using the modern technology, modern insulation, not the R values that even post-World War II homes would be utilizing if they were constructed then. Huge opportunities. Here are the measures, benefit to cost ratio. This is what really should be driving state policy. What is it that we can use for limited state resources to move families into the most affordable heating system possible? Air sealing, heat pumps, pellet stoves. We're looking at how can we mobilize people to make these investments. These are returns that we see within a winter in terms of providing cost savings. If you make these investments, what are our annual heating costs? Well, typically we have an inefficient oil boiler with an inefficient with an inefficient building envelope, and we're looking at $3,500. What has been remarkable since I've been working on energy policy is that the range of options for Mainers have expanded. In 2008, there was one option, and really one option alone, and that was to weatherize your house. That option remains, but now we have more tools available. Irrespective of where you live in the state of Maine, there is an affordable heating option for you. Natural gas expansion. The wood pellet industry is thriving in this state right now. I'll move forward with a discussion of the heat pumps in a moment. The real barrier, if you talk to any of these companies that know how much their product will change that person's economic condition and their quality of life, is the barrier to upgrade. How many families have the ability to make these investments? If you talk to natural gas companies, they're getting, even though it is cost effective to move to a gas conversion, they're only seeing a penetration of about 50 to 60% of homes on a road. Why is that? It's that they do not have the access to the money to make that investment. What we've done over the last 2 years is put in place the framework for growth where all Mainers can take advantage of what is a more affordable heating option. Natural gas expansion. We have seen in 2013, 3,200 customers convert over to natural gas. 2014, more than 5,000 are estimated. That's roughly $12 million annually remaining in our state's economy. The artery for natural gas is in place in the state of Maine. The next question is, how do we mobilize households to take advantage of that option? The governor's heat pump initiative. My predecessor launched an innovative program that allowed each utility to provide a rebate to move 1,000 customers with a $500 rebate. I was just at the National Association of State Energy Officials meeting, And the number of states that are looking at Maine last year were about a couple. Now it's about a half dozen states that are looking at Maine as a model to adopt across the country. In fact, in a discussion with the Department of Environmental Protection talking about our clean power rules that they have proposed, it was raised by a number of states. Maine is actually expanding our electrical usage. How can we ensure that our clean power rules do not disincentivize a state from moving towards the efficient use of electricity when you're displacing a carbon-intensive fuel? I think that's a real challenge. You're going to hear more about this as states look at electrifying their sector from transportation to the residential thermal side of how you do not create a power plant rule that does not disincentivize the use of electricity. We're seeing about $900 worth of savings annually per household, and the numbers are accelerating for the number of households that are installing these products. One thing that I've learned in my year and a half working in Augusta is that our statute that governs our main energy laws are full of goals. They don't have really plans to execute upon those goals, however. One thing that governs it is a 2011 state law that requires the Energy Office to develop and implement policies for a 30% reduction of oil usage by 2030 over 2007 baseline, a 50% reduction by 2050. Well, when I walked in the office, my predecessor had prepared a report that assessed how is the state progressing on meeting these goals. Conclusion: Maine state energy programs are not focused on reducing residential heating costs where there's a significant oil usage. Again, we have the goals established, no plan to actually carry out the reduction in oil usage. So there's been some discussion about the omnibus legislation, the energy bill. When I arrived in Augusta, and I see Bobby Beavers here from the EUT committee, speaking to each of them, they recognize the challenge. Everybody knows that Maine needs to move forward with investments in affordable heat. We just didn't have the money to do it. The governor introduced a bill, a bipartisan bill. Senator Cleveland, Sarah Gividian, Larry Dunphy, Ken Fredette, that refocused our state energy resources from the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative away from just electric savings, but to where our most pressing energy challenges exist, and that is within our heating costs. In FY14, we provided $7 million to the Efficiency Maine Trust to develop this program. FY15, we've gotten creative, maintaining roughly that amount of funding. And what's striking about this is it has, as Michael will speak to, is it reflects how much thirst there is in Maine to move forward with investments in affordable heating systems. Not only that, we are moving forward in a manner that has the most cost-effective greenhouse gas emission reductions. Maine's electricity profile, in comparison across the country, is one of the cleanest in the country. During my meetings with the state energy officials, there are only two other states that can claim, two other entities. Vermont has no generation, with greenhouse gas emissions. And Washington, D.C. gets a pass, of course. Maine's right there. We have one of the highest percentages of electricity generated from renewable energy. And the question is, how can we utilize this in a way that addresses our most pressing energy challenges? We have, for the first time, the state resources available to move Maine forward. And we're going to move forward with that discussion about what that $7 million has done over the last year with Michael Stoddard. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. About 35 years ago, I was a student of Kathy Remmel, who was my biology teacher. And so I have a first word of advice to you kids up in the balcony and to your teachers. 35 years from now, this could be you standing up here, and your teacher could be sitting in the audience. So you teachers at Baxter School, don't screw this up. You have an important job. Thanks, Patrick, for that segue, and I'm really pleased to be able to talk about the work we've been doing to take these policy ideas and some of the dollars that are associated with them and put them to work trying to transform the marketplace. You've heard some talk about that earlier this morning, and that's what we do. We are I guess I'm in charge of this, not somebody else. What do I point at? Just in the air? Yeah. I'm the director of the Efficiency Maine Trust. We have a board of 9 independent stakeholders and government officials that direct us. And our mission is to lower the cost and environmental impacts of energy in Maine by promoting customer-sited energy efficiency and and alternative energy systems, that should say. The big thing that we've been working on for the last several years is improving home heating options and the tools for customers who want to lower their energy costs. We have a lot of other programs too, but the main one we want to talk about here today is the ones related to home heating. Why do we want to talk about this? Well, I may be repeating some things that prior speakers have said today, but I'll just recap. Maine residents pay about $1 billion a year for oil and propane to heat their homes, and that doesn't include wood and natural gas and other kinds of fuels we've talked about today. A significant amount of that heat is completely wasted. If you have an inefficient boiler down in your basement, most of that energy is going up the chimney and out into the air, where it's not doing you any good. The heat that does stay in the house could be leaking out through the attic and the little cracks in the foundations and in the walls and the windows. Mainers are not wasteful by nature, and new technology in heating systems and in insulation materials can help us make heat more efficiently and keep it in our homes longer. And this is going to make us warmer and healthier and improve our homes. And it will reduce the environmental impacts and keep more of that $1 billion here in Maine. So let's talk about how we can do that. How can we cut heating fuel consumption by 20 to 50%? You've heard some different goals, and I can report from some of the results we've seen over the last couple of years when homeowners take these steps and do these projects, they're saving somewhere between 20 and 50% of their energy costs. So if we're spending $1 billion a year to buy oil and propane, think about what 20 to 50% less than that would be. Okay, there's going to be an exam later. You guys better be doing the math. So the first thing I'm going to advise you to do, if you remember nothing else from this morning's comments by me, which was probably a good use of your brain space to remember nothing else, but remember this one thing. Go to this website. Go to this URL, efficiencymaine.com. All the things I'm going to say, all the resources and the tools that I'm going to talk about, and the case studies of how we did it are at this website. You're going to see descriptions of different kinds of heating equipment. You're going to see calculator tools that help you compare the cost if you were to choose one kind of fuel or a different kind of fuel, depending on the kind of system that you have in place. You're going to see case studies of other homeowners in Maine who have already taken these steps and read about the kinds of investments they made and the kind of savings they saw. I'm going to talk more about the Home Energy Savings Program, which was referenced earlier. That's the one that we have focusing on helping transition the Maine marketplace to more cost-effective energy systems that also have the nice side effect of being cleaner and better for the environment. One thing I am not going to talk about, although we do work collaboratively with other state agencies on this, is the low-income homeowner challenges with heat. And that has its own set of challenges, and this program is not specifically designed to help that. It doesn't exclude anyone who might be low income, but this is targeted at the marketplace, the free market, where people go out and spend their own money, and we are trying to nudge them in the direction of higher efficiency solutions. We do that with technical assistance. We do that with the information on this website. We do that with financial rebates. So the Home Energy Savings Program has 3 pathways you can go through. There's the custom path, the a la carte path. That's French. Anyone taking French? And the ultra-low greenhouse gas path. All right, so here they go in quick succession. I had to show these pretty pictures that we put on our website. The custom pathways for homeowners who might be trying to do a really comprehensive project on their home. They want to look at all the options, and maybe especially if they have an old farmhouse, some kind of tricky challenges related to heating and the building envelope. You might want to get an energy advisor who's a pro, certified by the Buildings Performance Institute, to walk around your house and give you an energy assessment and tell you what the priority punch list should be. We have different levels of incentive once you get there, and you can see that if you get 20% savings through this project, we'll give you a rebate for $1,000. If you do even more work and get a 40% energy savings, you get $1,500. That's performance. We heard about performance earlier. This isn't based on choosing one type or another type. This is based on results. By far, the most popular and easy to use pathway for us is the second pathway, which is the a la carte menu of choices. You do one of the things that's on this list, you get the predetermined rebate amount. I think that we're finding a lot of Mainers don't have the money to do a big comprehensive project all at once. They want to pick away at it over a series of years. So step one, this might be a good starting place for you. You got enough money to do a couple of little projects. You see what's on the list here, and if it's eligible and you choose one of the high efficiency products that is, or the weatherization that is incentivized through this program, you get your rebate. The third pathway is dedicated to 2 kinds of central heating systems, geothermal and pellet boilers, which is not the same as a pellet stove that you might see in your living room, which looks like the old wood stoves we're all familiar with. But this is the pellet boiler, which would replace your central boiler or furnace, your central boiler down in the basement. These are from a greenhouse gas standpoint, extremely positive. And the savings is you'll see in a minute on the calculator tool for cost is also good. It does have a high upfront cost. You're putting in an entire boiler system. And that's why the incentives for this are quite generous. They're $5,000. This, I should also note, part of what our mission is not just to help people get these things in place. It's also to gradually transform the marketplace so that when you go shopping to make your next energy choice, your heating choice, there will be some good high efficiency options for you out in the marketplace. And there will be contractors who have those for sale and know how to install them and know how to service them. Well, pellet boilers are something that's really relatively new to the Maine marketplace. You couldn't do this 5 or 10 years ago and have a lot of choices of who would offer them to you. So when you're starting out new with a particular technology like these pellet boilers, it's customary to start with a fairly generous incentive, and $5,000 is a pretty generous incentive, and we've seen terrific results. More than 300 pellet boilers, central pellet boiler systems high efficiency got installed in Maine in the past 12 months, right? Thought so. Weatherization. This is the one that works for everybody. How did I get to that slide? I jumped ahead, sorry. So of all the types of upgrades that you could do for that second pathway or the first custom pathway to get your rebates, weatherization is the one we always encourage for folks. In the last 3 years of doing these projects, well over 10,000 homes have participated in some capacity, and we collect information about what was there when the contractors first showed up, and we found that in almost half of all the homes that have participated in this program, their attic had less than R12 insulation in it, all right? So you all can think about those pink insulation bats that you've had in your home at some point over the last 50 years, and you looked at it and it was R13, okay? That's about this much insulation. It's that pink stuff that the air just goes through willy-nilly. That's not good enough in Maine. It should be R49 anyway. So you need to do what these guys are doing over on the right. You need to blow insulation in your attic, and that's one of the most popular measures that people are doing through this number 2 pathway, the menu path. To get started, since you might not know where to get started, we encourage you to contact an energy advisor. So you click on, when you get to the website, you click on these icons here, you get a list of what an assessment will get you and who can do these for you, and you check out the information about air sealing, fill in all the cracks and all around the chimney and the windows, and the same thing with insulation choices, and see what the rebates are. The rebates are $400 back if you do an assessment together with air sealing, at least 6 hours of air sealing, and then another $500 for any zone of your house that you insulate up to a certain level. You can do that up to 2 times because on this program we have a cap of $1,500 per home. So you could do the assessment and the air sealing and 2 energy installations and use up your full cap. You'd get $1,500 back from us. I think one of the candidates earlier said they were concerned that these programs may not be getting out to everyone who needs them. Well, we keep track of where all the projects happen. We keep track of where we send all the rebates, and we're pretty pleased to see the kind of geographic distribution we've been getting. We've done 1,700 air sealing and assessments and another 1,100 insulation projects just in the last 12 months with the program that Patrick was talking about, the funding change came from. And this is where they occurred. The average cost of just the air sealing is $825. That's the total cost. So that's not out of reach for a homeowner that was going to pay $2,000 to $3,000 on their oil bill this year. That's got to be within reach. And that's before we give them a rebate for $400 to $500. So just that air sealing and caulking and foaming around the little cracks together with the assessment, our evaluation that was done by an independent third party showed that it's saving about 68 gallons per year for that home, for the average home, which translates to about $240. So it's a little thing, it's a great place to start, and you should follow it right up with an insulation job as you're thinking about that and what you're going to do with your heating system. So we talked about the building envelope, the place everyone should be thinking about and starting. But of course, heating systems is the other big part of the equation. We have 2 categories of rebates, one for the central heating systems and the other for the supplemental heating systems. I already mentioned the pellet boilers and the geothermal, but the heating systems up above, we did take a position at the beginning of this program a year ago that we would be fuel neutral and technology neutral, other than comparing things by efficiency. We wanted to make sure that they had the best-in-class efficiency. After that, it's up to the customer to choose what type they want. We don't have a rebate for every kind of product that's out there, but the ones that are best-in-class by type, that's on the list. So for the heating systems, whether it's a natural gas or oil or propane, they are eligible for a $500 rebate if they bump up to the best-in-class. For the supplemental heating systems, the ductless heat pumps in particular, Those are eligible for a $500 rebate also. That is a newer technology and something we're really trying to generate a lot of buzz and a lot of momentum in the marketplace. And I'm thrilled to say that it's working fantastically. As I'll show in a second, this is the last 12 months of heat pump activity in Maine. This is why when Patrick goes to meetings in other states, they say, what are you guys doing? You did how many heat pumps? We did 4,200 in the last 12 months, and we didn't pay for all those. You all and the other citizens of Maine paid for them. We put $500 on the table, and the residents did the rest. And the marketplace of contractors has grown up around this, which is exactly what we would have hoped to happen. Heat pumps are fascinating and a tremendous new opportunity for us in our heating costs and our economy in this state. It's important to note that they come in all shapes and sizes and all types. There have been models in prior years that did not work well when it got super cold out. And what we're most excited about is that the manufacturers have developed new models that do work when it's super cold out. That's a big change, and it's very important for us. We're talking about them as a supplemental heating system. You can put them in as a central heating system. You could buy a really big one, or you could put multiple in every room in your house. But we've been promoting them just as one supplement per home because we assume lots of folks are like in my house. You have a big old heating system already in place. It's still working okay. It's just not very efficient and it's not very cheap. So you put this thing in the room that you're going to live in the most, and you run it as much as you can, and it's going to deliver you extremely affordable and efficient and clean heat. And then you run your central heating system as the backup when it gets super, super cold out, or you want to heat other parts of the house that you're not usually in that much. But we're finding that not all consumers have gotten the message. So some people are making this glorious investment. They got this fantastic new piece of technology, and they're saving it. Don't save it. Heat pumps are like a bulletproof vest, okay? They can only save you when they're on. You gotta put it on and you gotta run it. And so it is the lowest cost energy that you're gonna be able to get if you're gonna look for a supplemental heating system. I think people should also recognize that you should be smart about it. You should think about whether it is the right thing for you. If you're on a natural gas line, and you have a boiler or furnace in place, that may be the way for you to go. So this isn't necessarily for everybody, but for lots of folks in Maine, this is a really good option. And we're thrilled to be able to pick up the pilot project that Bangor Hydro started and make that a statewide initiative. A couple last things I will say. So how do you get started? Some resources you should know that are on our website, and you guys at Baxter School could go back and play around on these things and do some math. This is a calculator tool. I don't know if you can see it from the back of the room, but on our website is a calculator tool. You look for the kind of fuel that you have and tell the tool about what you pay each year in heating costs, and then you can compare to what your operating costs would be if you switch to any one of these other kinds of fuels. So that's a useful piece of information that we find most customers are thinking about when they are trying to look at their choices. Probably the biggest barrier to doing any of these things in Maine is that terrible moment when you have to call someone up and get a contractor. It's hard enough just to choose the thing you want, but then to find the contractor who's going to install it is pretty intimidating for a lot of people. And if you're like me, that means months and years go by before you actually get around to it. We've tried to make that easy for you. There's a tool on the website called the Registered Vendor Locator tool. You go on and you put in your zip code, which I have in the upper left here. I put the Portland zip code. You put the radius from how far away from that zip code you're looking. And then you can sort by number of projects they've done, by distance from your zip code, whatever you want. And then you click on the box of the service you're looking for. I checked all the services in this case, but you could check, if you knew you're just looking for insulation, you could check that. And this is what you get. This is what I got when I clicked last night and put in 25 miles from the 04101 zip code. And these are the first 9 vendors out of the 165 that popped up that are within 25 miles of the 04101 zip code. There's 680 of these vendors across the whole state. But just within the 25 miles of Portland, there's 27 energy advisors, 24 insulation installers, and 62 heat pump installers. So don't tell me you can't find a contractor. They're out there, and they're right on this list. Additional tools that you might be thinking about. We've talked about heating the space in your home. You also have to heat the water in your home somehow. A lot of Maine homes have crummy, inefficient water heaters. And these new heat pump water heaters, what they can do for the air, they can also do for water. We're really excited about these. We're offering $300 rebates on these, and for the appropriate situation, they can be a fantastic improvement to lower your water heating costs. We found that even though we were offering pretty generous rebates, the balance of the project cost is still pretty inhibiting for a lot of Maine consumers. And we were very fortunate to get a generous federal grant a few years ago that enabled us to create a revolving loan fund. And we have different kinds of loan products that will work for many, many Maine homeowners. So folks shouldn't have the excuse that they can't get financing to cover the balance of the cost of the project. We've done more than $10 million in loans in the last 3 years. Right, Dana Fisher? Dana Fisher. Thank him. He's the guy. And last but not least, it said on the agenda that we would talk about businesses, but I could tell no one was really going to talk about that, so that's why I made all my other slides about the homes. But we do have programs for businesses just as well as we do for homes. They are obviously critical to our economy. They are obviously stuck with a lot of the same issues that homes have in terms of leaky buildings and inefficient heating systems. So where the funding has allowed us, we have tried to make rebates available. So those heat pumps are also available for businesses. The incentive is even more generous for businesses. So if you have clients maybe who are businesses and use a lot of heating, I would encourage you to tell them about the business incentive program. We have a program for multifamily apartments, which is a lot of apartments in the Portland and Lewiston and Bangor areas. So that is providing weatherization and heating system upgrades. And then finally, anytime there's new construction happening, is that once in a lifetime opportunity to build that building right and get it well insulated and put good systems in it. All that information can be found at our business page on the website, and so we cover the bases. So just to summarize and wrap up, this program that you've heard me and Patrick talking about, I made a typo here. It says $1.37 a gallon. It's actually $1.39 a gallon. That's what it equates to. That's what the cost equates to save a gallon through energy efficiency, through the types of steps I've been talking about. That's a pretty good deal when you think that the price of oil has been somewhere between $3.50 and $3.85 a gallon for the last few years. By the numbers, we've touched more than 6,600 homes in 12 months. This is an order of magnitude higher than the kinds of programs that people were able to offer in Maine to help upgrade their heating in their homes. $33 million worth of economic activity happened just in home improvements around energy in the last 12 months in Maine. We put down $5 million, so that's pretty good leveraging. We went from $5 million of our rebates to $33 million in activity. Some of that was financed with our loans, $3.6 million in the last 12 months. There used to be a criticism that this was just a program for the well-to-do because they're the only ones who could afford to do a big, expensive project. But we're finding that the average cost of these projects is $5,000. That's not insignificant, but it's definitely within reach. As I said before, if people are paying $2,000 to $3,000 a year in heating costs, a $5,000 investment is something that you're going to see a payback on in a reasonable time, and it's something we hope people are taking seriously. We had the good fortune to have a healthy budget last year, and I say we spent $5 million. We actually didn't spend it all last year. We had a little bit to carry forward into this year, which was added to some new money we got this year, so we're up around $10 million. So we're going gangbusters, but the word is getting out, and as we would hope that it would, and so you can't dawdle. You need to get out there and take action. If you've been putting it off, or if your family member or your neighbor, your friend has been putting it off, you got to get back to them and tell them it's time to pick up the phone and also get on the website and check out this information. I look forward to your questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Michael and Patrick. We're right on time, so we have 10 or 15 minutes for questions. Does anybody have questions for Michael or Patrick? I assume you'd want to come down to the microphone if you have a question. Yes, please, come right up.
I noticed you mentioned new construction as one of your programs, but where it outlined how much money you had spent on different programs, I didn't see anything about that. One of my sons is an architect, and I'm thinking you should have some architects in this organization. He's a lead architect. Is that a new program for new construction?
It's a relatively new program, and it only is available for commercial property.
Only commercial property, that's what I wanted to find out, yeah.
It was on the page with the other business programs that we offer.
Okay.
So it's people follow the guidelines for best practices in energy for a new building design, they will get a dollars per square foot incentive in return. And we are sharing that information with all the architecture firms in town.
Oh, you are good.
Yes.
Because they use lead architects too. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yep, please come up.
Clarification. I'm not sure I entirely followed what you were saying, Mr. Woodcock, about if we're further electrifying our heating and our transportation, how there would be a disincentive with power production. Can you explain that a little more to me?
Sure. So an overview of the Clean Power Rule developed by the EPA sets megawatt per CO2 standards per state. The goal is to cut collectively, and each state has goals by 2030. The idea is, though, if you start adding electricity consumption, you could start to put pressure on utilizing more natural gas in the state of Maine to power to power the grid. So there could be an expansion of utilization that would actually increase the CO2 per megawatt hour from the grid. However, the question is, though, if you're using heat pumps and using electricity, what are you displacing? Oil. So can that be accounted for when you're designing a power plant specific policy, that it's not just one island that's power plants, it has interactions with the other sectors. So that is one point that we are developing in comments with a number of other states to the EPA.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Michael Patrick, Barry Woods with Electric Mobility. I have a question as you think about the future and leveraging additional funding for these kinds of home-based heating, efficiency programs. I'm just wondering, and I may have missed this, is there any economic data out there to show what the additional value to the local communities might be for the savings in, not shipping petrodollars outside the boundaries of the state of Maine? And I say that because in the electric vehicle space, there's some studies that have been coming out, University of California, Berkeley, that suggest every dollar that's saved stays in the local community and has some pretty tremendous multiplier effects. So besides the value to the consumer of the fuel energy savings, I'm just wondering, has there been any kind of analysis to support the impact in the local economy?
I'm aware of some analysis that was done, I want to say 2009, in the New England area. I think it was growing out of the debate around whether to join RGGI. And that analysis used the REMI modeling, which is pretty well established. I think EPA uses a lot of time to figure out the economic impacts of policies that they're considering. And in the New England states, they did exactly the analysis you're talking about what would the multiplier effect be for programs like our program to save oil or natural gas or electricity, and they ran it according to the different 3 fuel types. So it isn't reported exactly the way you're asking. It reported that for every dollar you spent through a program like the ones we run, you would save $5.7 if it were a heating oil savings, and you'd save $3-something if it were an electricity savings. So I encourage you to go look at the website of a group called Environment Northeast, where I know that report can be found, and I think it's from 2009. But it did that for each of the states in New England. So, somewhere between a 3 and 5.5 times multiplier for every dollar that we spend. It's not quite the same as the dollars saved that you're talking about, but a big part of it is when those dollars stay in the bank account of the local homeowner, they have more discretionary money to go do something. So not only are there direct multiplier effects for the people who get the jobs to go do this work, which I showed you just in the home contractor alone is 680 different private firms that are doing that, some of which are sponsors of today's event. Thank you very much. But then the savings that they retain and go out and buy pizza or go to the movies or whatever it is they do, or if they're a business, they invest in more employees, or they buy another truck, or they invest in the next generation equipment. So those savings are critically important.
Let me give one fact to answer that is revealing. Every time that there's a threshold that economists have tracked about percentage of disposable income dedicated to energy. Every time that we have reached the point where it's above 6.5%, 7%, the U.S. economy has gone into recession. It's a disposable income. It immediately goes back into the economy if people are able to reduce their energy expenditures. That's why the people watch oil prices very closely, correlating it to U.S. economic growth. But in Maine, and as I pointed out, our exposure to oil prices is roughly double that of other states. So it's a huge opportunity to reduce energy expenditures, expand disposable income, and grow the Maine economy.
Yeah, this is more kind of an efficiency main question, but I've pretty much switched over to a zone heating within the house and discovered that marvelous Maine energy efficiency invention, the door. We shut the door between the kitchen and the living room. We shut the door between the bedroom and the living room. So what I'm looking for is a tool which can help me calculate the best doors to put for the interior insulation of each individual room. And I'm also looking for another tool which would enable me to determine the fresh air exchanges between, say, the bedroom and the outside, or the kitchen and the outside. And let me add one more little comment here, is that my neighborhood within the past year has really gone over big time to natural gas. We're beginning to see through just doing the heating and into areas like switching over from an electric clothes dryer to a gas clothes dryer, an electric cooktop to a gas cooktop. And now I and a few of my neighbors are talking about getting a gas compressor and switching over to CNG powered cars. So there's this kind of natural gas revolution which is beginning to trickle through at least our neighborhood anyway in Brunswick. So I don't know about the rest of the state, but in Brunswick, yeah, we're getting into it big time.
I didn't detect a question, so I was trained in law school not to answer one if there wasn't one asked.
I'm very interested in reducing the amount of electricity we use in Maine and the rest of the world, I guess, based on fossil fuels. And I think that solar energy may be the best way. After all the energy really comes from the sun anyway. In Maine, as I understand it, there's a limit on the number of families that can work together, 10 families to share perhaps a ground-mounted solar panel system or a barn-mounted solar panel. And I think this ought to be changed. But I would be interested in what you have to say about incentives, the incentives I think we need to help people individually or in groups to use more solar energy instead of buying it off the grid.
Respond to that. I missed a little bit of a part of your point about the 10 families, but I'll try to answer your question if you have a follow-up. First of all, I think you have to look at where are we getting our electricity. In New England, it's roughly 55% natural gas, right? In Maine, we have about 55% renewables last year coming onto the system. It is important to reduce electrical usage in the areas where there's a high CO2 usage. That is in the Midwest. That's not in the Northeast. And I think the point that I'm making is, given that fact, it could make sense that we actually use more electricity in Maine if your only goal is to reduce CO2 because of the makeup of our electricity production. Solar. There was a lot of debate in the legislature about developing a solar policy. Why doesn't Maine have a solar policy? The thing that solar provides is distributed generation, reduces transmission usage, and that value needs to be assessed. So when you're getting a $2,000 rebate for a solar system to put on your house, that everybody collectively benefits. So what did the legislature and the governor agree to do? Let's assess what is the value of you putting solar up on your home for everybody. That proceeding is occurring right now at the Public Utilities Commission. And if solar demonstrates that it provides a benefit for the entire system, we should reflect that in state policies. I think we've set up the state of Maine to succeed long-term with a solar policy that is stable, is consistent, and reflects its attributes and value to the entire system.
I think it could be improved, but thank you very much. Thank you.
I don't have a question, but I want to say that having been a member of this organization for a number of years, this is the most objective, straightforward, knowledgeable segment that I have seen in that whole period of time. Thank you both very much.
On that very positive note, I can't end on a better note than that. Jeff Marks just has a few quick announcements, and I want to again thank our panelists and thank you all for your patience, and thank our school friends for joining us today. Jeff?
And I hope everybody sticks around for a couple minutes. I just wanted to say some thanks to some people and to some sponsors and talk about some events that are coming up. First, I want to thank Representative Michaud and Elliott Cutler for speaking this morning. We appreciate their thoughts on energy policy in Maine, specifically as it focuses on the heating issue. Thanks to Michael and Patrick. I echo the gentleman's comment about being a very informative panel. We love to have the two of them in. They are two of the most knowledgeable people about energy policy and programs and technologies in the state, so if you get a chance to talk to them afterwards, please do. Thanks to Bill Taylor and Jim Katsiafikis for moderating these two panels. I want to especially thank the sponsors today, Maine Energy IQ, the Maine Association of Building Efficiency Professionals, Goggin Energy, Interphase Energy, Revision Heat, Pelletco, Maine Energy Systems. We have a couple of people down front from MES. The Sunrise Guide, the U.S. Green Building Council, the Maine chapter, TRC, Fairchild, 19 Oaks, and Maine Biz. I wanted to let everybody know that this afternoon at 2 o'clock, actually, yes, 2 o'clock, there's going to be an alternative energy expo up on Presumpscot Street in Portland. That's being hosted by Interphase Energy. They plan to have quite a few vendors there. They'll have music, they'll have food. Sorry we didn't provide music today. I'm not going to sing, and I won't ask these two, although Michael might, but I won't force that issue. Also want to mention that tomorrow is the first annual Portland Green Fest. That should be pretty informative as well. That will be all day at Monument Square. There's several events coming up over the next couple of months. There's a summit on Maine's next economy coming up on September 26th. I believe Michael and Patrick will be on a panel there, so if you want to see them twice in 1 month, I think that will be a great opportunity. On October 2nd, up in Bangor, the Maine Technology Institute is having their Tech Walk. That really showcases all of the innovative companies across the technology sectors in Maine. That will be a pretty good event as well. Just want to let everybody know that we have some brochures out front that talk about some of the programs that we have coming up, as well as the projects we're involved in. I think some of our sponsors are still out there, so you might be able to get some information from them. I do want to apologize for this morning. We did expect to have 3 candidates up here to talk about the issue that's going to face them when they come into office first thing in January. We'll be at the start of winter, and heating policy will be a big issue. So we had all 3 candidates confirmed as of this morning, and we would have liked to have heard from each of them on what they had coming up and what their strategies are going forward. And I think I want to let you know that E2 Tech, I've been with E2 Tech for a couple of years now. It's a fantastic organization. It's very diverse in its membership. We have renewable energy companies, environmental engineering firms. We have universities. We have students who are interested in becoming the future's innovators in clean tech and energy and environmental issues. We hold very balanced forums, or we try to. We have everything from renewable energy to, we had a forum on petroleum technologies last year. So check out our forums, check out some of the events that we have coming up. There's something in there for everybody, and thank you all for coming. And make sure you drop these off on your way out. Thanks.